right, welcome back to another episode of Pod Patrol, a very special episode, the season finale, season 2 finale, joined by my wife, Dr. Ashley Dikis. Thank you for agreeing to hop on with me tonight.
Of course.
I appreciate you in the real world, and I appreciate you hopping on the podcast as the guest for the season finale. Season 2 is coming to a close. Can't believe I've been doing the podcast now for over a year and a half.
Which feels really wild because even when you first mentioned you were going to do like the Instagram thing, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to take I don't know what I thought the time commitment was going to be just to be somebody who posted regularly on Instagram, especially because you put like a lot of time and effort into I know your attention to detail level and that you weren't going to just like dip your toe in, that it was going to be like a all-in editing thing. And then when you said you wanted to do the podcast, I just remember thinking okay, that's great. Like, if you don't have enough to do, I can find more things for you to do around the house, or
No.
you need to fill your extra time. You feel that need, but because it
No,
just felt like
I like
such a
fun
huge
things.
undertaking. Yeah, I know.
Not house projects.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've noticed.
whatever the time commitment I thought it was going to be, you can quadruple it.
Really?
Because everything takes longer. The editing takes longer, the finding the guests, the setting it up, the setting up the podcast studio every time. I've gotten streamlined at it. I've gotten a lot better at it. It doesn't take as much time as it used to, but the time commitment is significant. So this better be worth it. People better be getting something out of this. And based on the number of people who've come up to me and given nice comments and said nice things, I think they are getting something out of it. And I think people do learn a lot. Hopefully that was the goal, and to make it entertaining. So hopefully it's been worth the effort. So if anyone doesn't know, we do have an Instagram. It's @FootDocDuo. We post cases on there and try to be educational and somewhat entertaining as well. At least I think it's entertaining. So if I think it's funny, then it has to be funny, right?
Obviously.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the podcast and what it has turned into? Like when we go to ACFAS, wasn't it weird that people wanted to take their photo with me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool, though. That shows that people are really enjoying it, which makes it worthwhile, right? For you to spend all the extra time that you do to do it. But at the same time, let's not pretend like you haven't seen a lot of benefits from doing it too, right? Like you have met
not monetarily,
not monetarily. Let's be clear on that.
Not in any tangible way.
No, but you have met or interacted with or whatnot so many really, really nice, cool people in the profession that you otherwise I don't think would have.
I would have never met these people. I would have never become quasi friends with them. Friends enough that if we see each other in real life, that we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Right. And become friendly. So it's an interesting thing, but I don't know what the end game is. You know, how do you know when you're done? Whoever that does a podcast, how do you go okay, now I've talked about everything that I want to talk about?
Right.
Or do you just wait till your viewership plummets and then you give up? Or do you keep trying to grow your listenership and viewership to the point where you just go crazy and say F it and I'm done with it? Like, I don't know what the end game is. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Most things in life have a natural conclusion. And I don't know that doing a podcast has a natural conclusion.
No, because what we do is always changing too, right? Like there'll always be something new to talk about. It sounds crazy to be in this very small niche portion of medicine. There'll always be something new or different, even if it's a repeat of something from the past. There's always something, and I think that probably helps. But also, I have to assume it'll just be something that you do as long as you're still enjoying doing it. It's a lot of your free time that you put into.
It's not a lot of my free time, but it's a decent enough of my free time that it does take up some time and energy.
That's
so
true.
I'm going back. I'm pulling up questions that we got on the podcast. We're going to answer a bunch of questions. We are going to talk about salaries with the new salary. What the hell is it called? Survey with the new salary survey that went out, and we're gonna analyze and overanalyze that. We're going to talk about the recent ACGME versus the CPME thing, give our thoughts on that. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world of podiatry these days. We are going to talk about a lot of things. So stay tuned to the rest of the episode. So this is the season 2 finale. So that infers that there will be a season 3, I suppose. So stay tuned for more information on a potential for a season 3 of Paw Patrol podcast coming soon. So the recent salary survey came out. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at it. I'm going to share it so that you can see it. And I think it'd be interesting for us to go through this and talk about what our thoughts are on this. So this is the latest data when it comes to podiatrists, specifically foot and ankle surgeon salary in the United States. So when you take all of the people who submitted their information, we'll get to the flaws with that here in a minute, but 895 people submitted their salaries with an average total compensation of $305,285. MGMA averaged $375,000. When you look at the range there, it's a gigantic range from on the low end in the lower 5th percentile of 122,000 to the highest 95th percentile of 700,000. That is a gigantic range. What are your thoughts on this number and the range when you first see that or hear that?
Well, I think it's great that they're collecting the data, right? Because there's a lot of, if you were just to Google podiatrist salary and try to kind of find this information on your own, again, you're going to find a lot of information that varies pretty widely. I think that the big gap speaks to the fact that people practice very differently. I look at it and think the fact that you can have a practice where maybe you're somebody who worked part-time. Like I did that when we first, came into practice, and I worked 4 days a week instead of 5. And that very much was needed to kind of fit our lifestyle of having tiny kids at home. So like I look at that and think over and over, as somebody who sits and does interviews for potential incoming students, people talk a lot about wanting a career in which they can have some work-life balance, or maybe they want to have children or whatever it might be. I think that speaks to that, at least somewhat, right? I think it also shows that you can take this career, and if you're willing to put in the time and effort and work, and maybe you become partner in a large group or whatever it might be, that, there's a lot of potential from a earning standpoint.
I agree. And there's lots of things that caught my eye, but when you go and you scroll through and you can kind of see the metro areas that the people who submitted their data live in and the number of hours that they work per week, there's a ton of these on here that are above 40 hours per week.
Yeah.
And so I find that interesting because I think I calculated I work like 24 hours per week, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And I don't want to work 25 hours. I'd rather work 23 and then 22 and then 20. You got to work smarter, not harder. And so finding other streams of revenue, whether it be an ancillary provider, whether it be you're in private practice and you hire some associate people, whether you become a partner in a group and you get ancillary benefits, or you join a surgery center. There's lots of ways to stream ancillary revenue that don't involve a 1-to-1 ratio of seeing patient getting dollar. I think you can just fall into this hamster wheel of see patient, get dollar, see patient, get dollar. And that's fine. There's lots of patients who need help, and there's lots of patients who need to be seen with our services, whatever their issue may be. But I think you can easily get burned out if you keep chasing the carrot on the end of the stick and you're running on the hamster wheel and your hours are going up and maybe your salary is going up too, but to what end? I've always said I thought there's a balance between happiness and salary, which means if you're making $51,000 a year, you're probably not very happy. And there could be a number of reasons of why you're making $51,000 a year. But your salary goes up and then your happiness level goes up. You got a bigger house, you got a nicer car, you go on vacations, you spend a week in Hawaii, whatever it may be. I don't I don't agree with the people that say money can't buy happiness. Money can buy happiness. Money doesn't guarantee happiness. I think that's the issue there. Money can buy fun things, but just because you have money doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to be happy. I think that's the distinction there. Point of that is, I see a lot of hours on here, 50, 60 hours per week. I mean, that's a wild amount of work. What are your thoughts on that when you think about the pros and cons, the benefit ratio of working so many hours, yes, making more money, but to what end?
Yeah, I think it just varies so much on your situation, right? Like you live in a household where, I mean, you work with an academic podiatrist, so
Mm.
you got it so easy because you're with somebody who just, you know, sky's the limit,
Cashes them
just
checks,
cashing in.
cashing them checks.
No, but I mean, truly, if you are kind of the sole breadwinner in your house or whatever it might be, maybe you're somebody who's like, I'm gonna work crazy hard for 20 years, and I'm gonna retire early and go lay on a beach, right? Like everybody's life looks so different and they have different needs. And there are gonna be people on this list, we've met them, who they just love to be at work. They like the grind of it. They want to do all the surgeries and work all the hours, and they're training residents and they love it. And that's great too, because
Yeah.
if that fits your life and that's what you like and that's what works for you, then I think, but again, I think this just speaks to the fact that you can do a lot of things with this profession. You can
Yeah.
kind of make it into a lot of different things. Again, if you're going to be somebody who maybe is, willing to trade some of that higher end earning potential for, working fewer hours, then that's a possibility too. And you can still, make a good living.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to think about when you work so hard to earn a bunch of money, but then what? We've talked about that before. What if you get sick and you can't travel and spend all that money? What if something happens? You never know
Hmm.
what could happen. Then what? And I'm not saying spend all your money and go out in a blaze of glory. That's not what I'm saying. But, I think it's a really hard thing because we tend to do our biggest working hours, our the most working hours when we're young. But that's also when we have young kids at home, young families. You're young enough to go out in the yard and throw the ball with your kids and take them to soccer practice and run around on the field. It's this weird balance, I think, that we have to strike between working a ton and making a lot of money versus spending that time with your family. And I don't know where I'm going with that from this salary standpoint, but I'd noticed that there were a lot of hours on there that were a lot higher than 40. And if I even worked 40 hours, I would be, I don't want to say miserable, but like, are you even enjoying your life? I mean, I don't know. You must really like your job, and that's okay. I hope you do, but that's a lot of hours to be working.
Yeah, again, I think there's just for some people that's just the reality. Maybe that's their contract says that's how many you work and you work those kind of that full time and that's what you got to do to get it done. So, I think the other thing to keep in mind anytime we're dealing with a relatively small cohort of people, right? That these numbers it's not like there's 20,000 podiatrists who put in their salaries,
Right.
right? So that average can be kind of shifted greatly
And
one direction or another.
I would say two things. If you don't make very much money, you are not rushing to go fill out this survey. And if you make a boatload of money, if you make a ton of money, you can't wait to fill out this salary. That's just the nature of humans, right? If you
Sure.
drive a Ford Escort, you're not knocking on the neighbor's door showing them your new car. But if you just got a Ferrari, you're knocking on all the neighbors' doors like, hey, you want to see my new car? Right? It's just the nature of humans that you are more likely to want to show something off than others. So I'm worried that this data is skewed a little bit because you can never get all of the people to submit their information because there are people who just won't do it. There are people who have never heard of it. They don't know what we're talking about. And there are certain people who don't make very much money who don't necessarily want to broadcast that out into the world. So I think you take these salary numbers with a grain of salt. I think you can look at the each individual salary amounts in their community and look and see, okay, well, when you live in, LA, I hope you're making more money than if you live in like, the middle of Ohio or something like that, because cost of living does factor in. If you live in Boston, I hope you make more money than you get the point. We don't need to go through
Yeah.
every single city. But I think there is a lot of information that can be gleaned from this. And for right now, this data is free at Merit Health, MARIT health.com. You can search for it for a period of time. All of this data is free. People can search for it and get access to that. But I did think it was interesting for us to talk about that. And the numbers that are out there that people are sharing are potentially a lot higher than people think. When you get onto the deep, dark web, these horrible places where all these losers hang out and badmouth podiatry, yeah, I said it. They hang out and badmouth podiatry. They complain that salaries are not high and that you're going to spend all this money on going to school and you're never going to make a living supporting your family. Meanwhile, everyone I talk to on the podcast is doing well. They're successful. They're happy. I mean, where are these very few are the very vocal, and they drive me absolutely insane on these message boards. I wish we could identify who they are. And I know who quite a few of them are in real life. But what are your thoughts on the trolls of the internet bad-mouthing podiatry when it really isn't anything like the real world that we live in every day?
Yeah, I think it probably exists in all different kind of specialties. Unfortunately, medicine becomes a place where people are put under a lot of pressure and they went through all this schooling and it feels like they were made a promise. And then if it doesn't pan out the way they envisioned it would, or whatever it might be,
But there
then I
was
think
no promise, right? There's no one standing at the front door of
I
the school
understand.
saying, you will be successful,
Right.
because not everyone can be successful. If you take the average intelligence in the United States, half of the people are below average intelligence. That's the nature of half are above average intelligence, but half of the people you meet at the grocery store, the gas station, walking down the street are below average intelligence, which means when you take the average doctor, half of those doctors are going to be above average, and half of those doctors are going to be below average, whether it be in surgical skills, intelligence, salaries, whatever it may be. Someone's got to be at the bottom. And the people at the bottom have to take accountability. Why are you at the bottom? Did you get a bad hand dealt? Or are you not very good, not well trained? Did you do something wrong? We don't like your personality. You're unhireable. Whatever it may be, same is true at the top. If you reverse that and make it a glass half full, are you charismatic? Are you likable? Do you work hard? Do you have good surgical skills? Did you get good grades? Did you get a good residency that set you up for success? When you meet people, they like you and they think of you. Hey, I want to get that guy to come lecture because he was super charismatic. Oh, she was super nice. I really liked her. We got to keep her in mind for next time. I don't think that there was a promise made to anybody.
No, but I think maybe can you appreciate how people might feel that way, right? That I got through school, I made it, I jumped through all the hoops, and that means that I should then be like compensated accordingly. And there are still plenty of hospital systems, parts of the country, whatever it might be, too, where some of these people may be really getting a lot of resistance towards just podiatry in general. Maybe their hospital system or community hasn't really kind of made that adjustment and truly brought podiatry into the fold. So they're kind of feeling that. And I think that probably doesn't help as well. So I try to agree. I don't think that hopping on the internet and trying to um, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish
I
with
don't
that,
either.
but either way, I certainly feel for anyone who doesn't end up feeling like they, can enjoy their career. There's plenty of people in all different parts of medicine who get all the way to residency or practice and then realize like, "Oh, this isn't for me. This isn't working out the way I wanted." So,
That's not unique to
it's a tough
medicine
thing.
or
No,
podiatry. I'm
it's
sure there's
not.
people who go and get a business degree or finance degree or whatever it may be, an engineer, and they get through
Mhm.
and they're like, I don't like this. Well, they're in the same boat. So now you've spent
Yeah,
a whole lot of money and now you're unhireable because you're miserable, and other people
right.
around you can tell that you're miserable and they don't want to be around you. So why would we give you a boatload of money if because we don't want to be around you because you're miserable? That is not unique to medicine, not unique to podiatry. That's
Yeah,
humans in general.
that's
But
life. Yeah.
I agree with you to a point, but if you look at the data and you start looking at all the different metro areas on there, there are good salaries across the
Mhm.
entire country. So
Yeah.
I would imagine there are some states that are less desirable to practice in. And if
Mhm.
you happen to find yourself in one of those states that's less desirable, yeah, maybe there are some more hurdles to get over than the average person. But scrolling through the data, I mean, there's a wide range of different areas on here all throughout the country with good salaries, good jobs that I know it's possible.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen so many people that we know who just like love their job. like we've met so many people. You, like you said, you've talked to people on the podcast, like people who just truly love doing this and are making a very good living doing it and are helping a lot of people. And I mean, I think that's the takeaway from all of this is there'll always be, unfortunately, those unhappy but vocal few.
Yes, there will. The online trolls, they could hopefully live in their deep, dark hole and stay off the internet, just hang out in their mom's basement, eat their Cheetos, watch their stories on the TV, and leave the rest of us alone. All right, let's switch gears to the ACGME versus CPME saga. For any younger people, that was a whole lot of alphabet soup there. It was a whole lot of letters. So to your understanding, tell us what the CPME is.
So it's the Council on Podiatric Medical Education. So it's basically the kind of oversight accrediting body for the podiatry schools as well as the podiatry residency programs.
Okay. And the
So it's
ACGME.
so they oversee just graduate medical education. So think DO and MD residency training programs.
I gotta look it up. ACG. My keyboard's not working.
I think it's
ACGME.
American Council on Graduate Medical Education. Is that right?
I don't know.
Or association.
Neither keyboard is working. What?
Calm, Dikis.
All right. I would love to search for ACGME, but nothing. Press tab.
Accreditation Council.
How come your keyboard works?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not American. It's Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education.
Credited what?
Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education.
Graduate Medical Education. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what recently happened was... No, you tell. Who approached who? I actually don't know who approached who.
And I mean, again, some of this, the insight, maybe we don't know exactly all of the facts, but there were initial discussions had between individuals associated with the American Podiatric Medical Association and the ACGME regarding
who oversees other residencies in the country.
MD and DO residency programs,
other medical specialties throughout the country.
And wondering if it might be something in which, in the future, podiatry would also fall under the ACGME. Now, the CPME would still be the accrediting body for the schools, for podiatry schools, but they're saying specifically for residency training, would podiatry potentially fall under the ACGME instead of the CPME?
So this was brought to someone, APMA, who eventually said, we're going to take it to the House of Delegates. We need to think about this more. We need to talk about it. We need to figure out if this makes sense. The first thing I thought of, so recently there was an outspoken party against podiatry, a competing group from orthopedic side of things who was very openly anti-podiatry, vocal, outward spoken anti-podiatry. And the first thing that I thought of is, what better way to ruin your profession than to hand the keys over to someone who has a vested interest in squashing you? What better way to ruin everything you've built so far than to hand it over to essentially the enemy? I'm not saying the ACGME is the enemy, but the group of orthopedics is a loud, vocal, and powerful component of medicine. If you've worked in a hospital, you know it's always ortho who's loud and dominating and unhappy with everything. And I love my orthopedic partners. They're fantastic. And I get along with so many orthopedic doctors. But historically, they have been potentially difficult. And I thought, okay, well, that's a recipe for disaster. What were your thoughts when you first heard this?
I think the big questions from my mind are more so just, I think we always need to be looking at what's kind of best for the profession long term, right? And 100%. There will always be tensions and sticky points between providers who overlap in the types of things that we treat. Now, do I wish that we could use that overlap as a way to kind of see more collaboration and have it be more of a collaborative kind of environment? Yes. But again, That's
And I think it
I'm gonna
can
keep
be.
that dream, and there are plenty of opportunities with situations in which it is,
We
right?
have meetings with Ortho Foot and Ankle. I've had Ortho Foot and Ankles on my podcast. I've
Yeah,
been on theirs.
right.
There is collegiality. It's
Yes.
just when it becomes institutionalized
Yeah,
and more of a larger group, and you're
yeah,
not dealing with these one-on-one people who are just normal people like you and I and good, friendly folk that we can get along with just fine and hang out with. And we've invited them to our meeting and all these things. It it gets sticky in a hurry when it gets to an organizational and institutional level with something that has a vested interest in fighting against you.
sure, because 'cause they're looking out for whatever they deem to be their best interests, and understandably so, so are we. So, I think that bringing forward something like that, the question is, what are we either feeling as if there is that we're missing when it comes to our current situation? What could some kind of, like, relationship with something like the ACGME bring that we don't currently have? Like, what can they offer that's something that's different? And so I think that it's a definite weighing risks and benefits when it comes to making I mean, that's a massive, massive change in the way our profession is, the oversight within the profession.
To my knowledge, when ACGME took over supervision or accreditation of DO
Mhm,
residencies, they got rid of a huge, I shouldn't say a huge chunk, a portion of them, 15,
mhm,
20% of the residencies that were not very good. No one would argue that there aren't bad podiatry residencies out there. There are. There are fantastic residencies. There are tons of great residencies, good residencies. But just like the average person is, half of them are above average intelligence, half of them are below average intelligence. There's going to be some that are average, some above, and some below. That's the nature of life. So someone might argue that if the ACGME came in and was a lot more strict with the accreditation, then we would lose some of the residencies that were not up to snuff, not up to par. And the issue with that is then it falls back into what we dealt with when you and I were coming out of school into residency, was that there was a shortage. Now
mhm.
you're graduating more more graduates than there are residency spots. And that's difficult because it's a constantly influx thing. Well, how many graduates, how many residencies? And if the residencies don't fill, then they lose their funding and then they close. Well, then the applicant pool goes up and then we have more. Like around our time, we had too many. And there were people who just had to sit out a year and retry the next year before they could create new residencies. It's a moving target. And I could see the pros and cons of both sides. But I think some people think that if we switched our accreditation to ACGME, that somehow that would give us parity. Somehow
Mhm.
magically we'd be accepted into this wonderful land of, you know, kumbaya. And all of a sudden the orthopedic groups are going to be like, you know what, podiatry, you're not so bad. And I got a rude awakening for you. That will not happen. When it comes to money, finances, and a vested interest in keeping someone down, keeping a profession from growing and becoming more successful than you are, that will never happen. And so I just think this pipe dream of, oh, if we get this group to do it, then somehow we'll become magically fantastic and everyone will take us seriously and we'll be a real profession at that point. I don't see that happening at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we have to focus on ourselves. I think we need
Yes.
to focus on, again, we have created what I think generally works as a well-run system, the CPME and the way that things function and the oversight that they offer. And I think that is there always room for improvement? Of course, right? But I think as opposed to constantly looking outward, which again, not to say that we don't want to make sure we're creating connections and doing things that are on par with other medical specialties, but we also need to sometimes just take a harder look inward at what our issues are, because I think unfortunately with podiatry, and this may be other professions too and within medicine, I don't know, but I think the call is coming from inside the house most of the time. Like, we are our own biggest problem
Yes.
95% of the time. So
Yes.
I think that's really where our focus should lie. I mean, we have divisions within our small little profession, and now we're trying to have
Yeah.
other outside entities involved. Like, it just feels like we're muddying the water potentially by
Yeah.
creating some of this other. So again, I think that a lot of the issues related to that weren't just is a potential move to the ACGME better than CPME or whatever, but it also just had to do with kind of the flow of information as well as kind of the decision making process between APMA and their House of Delegates and how the kind of power system, if you will, works within that entity. So I think there again, learning opportunities, lots of
Yeah.
ways in which maybe we're recognizing that there are places in which we need to take a closer look at the process and potentially make some improvements.
So what is the House of Delegates for anyone who doesn't know? You were on one of those APMSA. We got too many letters in our profession.
So that's been a while, and it was as a student. So
Yeah.
it does function differently than the APMA House of Delegates, but the APMA House of Delegates has representation from all of the states.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you have local representation coming forward to kind of help to oversee and make decisions that are going to affect the entire profession potentially.
So it's
Right.
kind of
So,
like Congress or
yeah.
House of
Hmm.
Representatives
Right.
where, you get a certain number from each state and they go to
Right.
Washington and they figure things
Yes.
out. Sometimes what's
So,
best for their state, sometimes, whatever they want to vote for. I don't know really how
yeah.
it works.
And the thought being that those members come to their kind of local representation, their local medical society, medical group, state medical society, and say, hey, how do we feel about this, potential issue, and how would you kind of like us to vote as a state? How does this
Right.
affect us? So it's a checks and balances because it's not like every decision is up to the APMA president or the executive board.
I think there is one potential issue with the CPME, and that's a potential for conflict of interest. If you have someone who's in the profession and on the CPME, is there any conflict of interest for it'd be like me overseeing my own board's exam? Be like, guess what? I passed. And you're like, yeah, but who proctored the test? Like, I did. And you're like, well, that's kind of a conflict of interest. Of course you passed because you're the one that proctored the exam. I'm not saying that happens, and I'm not saying anything about that, but some of the naysayers might argue that it's hard for people within our own profession to govern our own profession because of so many conflicts of interest in terms of, well, such and such is friends with them and they went to
Mhm.
residency together and they're buddies with them and they both speak for this company. And there is some component of having an outside body govern you. I just foresee so many issues that would be Pandora's box you can't close. Once you open that Pandora's box, you're gonna be like, never mind, never mind, never mind. Like, too late. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You said spite. Like, nope. You cannot go backwards now.
It's a decision that has to be made, like, really truly understanding all the potential risks and benefits, and I think, unfortunately, as it stands right now, I have a hard time envisioning that the potential benefits outweigh the risks.
So I'm
So,
glad they're gonna take some time, reevaluate, bring it
yeah.
to a larger group of people, have them discuss it in an open forum, pros, cons, get more information essentially. Like, what does this mean? What does this mean moving forward? And come to a mutual there are no mutual decisions when two sides are battling, but at least let people have all the information before they make up their mind.
Well, and again, I think to my knowledge, they're gonna take a step back
Yeah.
and, I'm sure it will be reevaluated in the future.
Yeah. I recently put a post on LinkedIn about surgeons promoting their own products. So, what happened was I was scrolling through LinkedIn and someone innocently had posted a case and said, I think it was a 4-foot case. And it was like one of those, do you fix the bunion? Do you fuse it? Do you save the joint? And I was scrolling through the comments and it was a huge number of people that were like, I would use this specific company. I would use this specific plate. And it just struck me as like each of these things is an advertisement, whether they're promoting their own company, their own product, or they speak for this company. And it was like nowhere in there did we give any kind of disclosures. You know how like when you do you give lectures and you have to do disclosures and they click through it so quick that you can't even like really see like, oh, nothing to see here. And you're like, wait, why'd you go through quick through that slide? Leave it up there a minute. I want to know what your conflicts are before I can judge your opinion appropriately. If you tell me that I use this plate all the time and it's the best plate in the world, and then I see on your disclosures that, yeah, that company paid you $81,000 last year, all of a sudden your opinion goes from up here to way down here because I know they paid for your opinion. Your opinion is all of a sudden less valuable to me. Not saying it's valueless, just saying I have to factor that in when I hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts on what's happened in our world where every surgeon now seems to be part of a team? They're part of a company, they're part of this, and everyone's divided up, and there aren't very many opinions. I try so hard to keep my opinion unbiased when I put something out into the world. I'm not perfect because I have spoken for companies and I have lectured at certain things, but I try to keep that out of it so much. What are your thoughts on that when you see people responding with an opinion, but it really is an opinion? It's an advertisement veiled as an opinion.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on it, and just that there just has to be transparency in that. I think just because somebody speaks for a company, it may be that I assume that most of the time that starts out because they really love that product and they really, you know, enjoy using those products. And they typically, you don't get to be somebody who speaks for a company unless you have used those products quite a bit. So it
Mhm.
probably is something that oftentimes you actually do feel strongly about, like, hey, this is what I think is, a great product for this. I think it's when industry is amazing. We have to have industry in order to do our job, right? Like we need companies constantly making new devices and being a part of all of this. But I think there is not one company that does every single thing kind of perfectly, right? I think it's when you find that I only ever use this one company. Now, are there probably products that are pretty similar? Does it really matter? Maybe the usability and the outcomes are pretty similar whether you use this company or not. But it just rarely see if I'm being honest, most of the time I find that, the first MPJ plate from this company I like best, but then the anchors from this company I like best, and the hammer toe implant from this other company I like best. I think it's when people get so far down and kind of into just one company where that's the only thing, at least that it seems like they use. That's where I think you start to kind of maybe lose some of that unbiased or less bias when it comes to, again, making those comments on LinkedIn. I think when people put cases out there, they're not really searching for you to say, you should use this particular plate. I think
Right.
they're usually looking for what would be kind of your surgical options that you would
Yes.
use, and not what specific hardware should I use for this.
Exactly. That was my thought exactly. They weren't posting a thought or a technique or a peer-reviewed journal where they were giving you some information. Hey, here's a study that looked at crossing screws versus a dorsal plate in terms of, risk of breakage and hardware failure. There was like none of that. That was all glossed over. It just really struck me and kind of made me not angry. Only time I get angry is when the Hawks lose.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's brutal.
We won't
Um,
talk about it.
yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Um, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Mhm.
But when they start, it gets dirty, I think, in a hurry. If like this surgeon is using all of that company's product, then that company flies them in to lecture for them, and then they're going to use more products because they want to keep getting these free flights and trips and lecturing. And it's just this like weird, dirty side of medicine that nobody wants to kind of talk about
Mhm.
because they like the benefits that come from all that stuff. But it rubs me the wrong. I don't really give a darn when people go and lecture for a certain company. Like I said, I've
Yeah.
done that before and it's fun and it's, get to hang out with people and it's a good time. But when you start skewing your opinions based on that, that's when I start to have an issue with that. And I start to devalue your opinion. They don't realize it, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to scroll right past this person because I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to promote. I know why they're promoting it. And I'm going to scroll right on past that to someone that doesn't have some other vested interest in something. But
But
I don't know if there's anything to be done with it.
don't you think that's, like, just it's a small percentage? Most surgeons are out there kind of using, I mean, again, you're in this, like, entrenched in the LinkedIn space, whatnot, but it's not that many voices who are
Right.
vocal on there. So I think it's also we have to like take a step back and say like most surgeons are just out there using the systems that they like and what works well for them and whatnot. And there is a small like percentage of people that maybe have just found themselves a little too far down the path with,
Yeah.
kind of entrenchment with some of these companies.
Yeah. Rubs me the wrong way. If anyone's listening, I don't trust your opinion.
He
All
doesn't
right.
trust mine either, so that's okay, guys.
All right. What else do we want to talk about? We wanted to talk about new things coming, new
Yeah.
logo, new Pod Patrol logo coming soon, new theme song. Spotify came along. Love Spotify. They host the podcast. Thanks, Spotify. They let me do that for free. But they came in, even though I paid not royalties, I paid licensing on my theme song, paid $200 to license my theme song. All of a sudden, they came in and said, nope, you can't use that theme song. We're blocking your episodes. Oh, gee, thanks. So then I had to file this appeal to Spotify and say, hey, I actually did pay for this. Can you please reinstate my episodes? Block them. And then they came back eventually, like 10 days later, and was like, submit the documentation. And I submitted the documentation and I said, hey, thanks for appealing. Thanks for fixing your error. Thanks for fixing your error. I assume this means that I will be able to post all of my future episodes using my theme song that I paid for appropriately to whoever made the song. And no response. They just reinstated the episode. So that makes me nervous that moving forward that they're going to block my episodes just whenever they feel like it. So I went out of my way and I made a new theme song. How do you feel about the new theme song? Are you addicted? Are you hooked?
It's really good. It's really
Yeah,
good.
what are you going to say, though? It's
Yeah,
lousy.
what am I gonna say? Yeah.
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 So, new theme song, new logo coming soon. Anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here and wrap up season 2 finale? We hit on a lot of hard hitting.
I know.
I
I
want
hope
to finish on something positive.
we
So what's
should 'cause
going on? Tell us what's going on at the school. You said you've had some applicants this year that are outstanding who are looking to
Yep.
get into podiatry, just some of the best applicants that we've had in a very long time at DMU, and hopefully that's true at all the other schools too. Things are looking up. We are excited. Give us a little update on DMU and what's going on in your world.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to see that there are people who are excited about the, podiatry as a potential, profession option for them and really strong candidates. And yeah, I think we'd like to continue to see that applicant pool numbers go up. Hopefully we will see that, big bump that we've been hoping for, but it's early in the year, so it's been good so far. So I think it's this is a time of the year when like I feel like excitement's always high. Like the first years are still kind of moving along, but they're kind of settled into campus life. And so maybe some of that early nervous energy is kind of settled and everybody's really kind of getting the swing of things with, clinic and whatnot. So it's always a good time of the year. So it's just for anybody who works around students, you can appreciate how much of a kind of uplifting experience it can be if you take a step back and be like, man, I remember when I was that excited to see anything, just to like be in the OR, even if I'm not scrubbed in, just to like be present. Just the idea of seeing a procedure or whatnot was so exciting. And so it's nice to get a reminder every now and then that, it really is a exciting thing that we get to do. We get to help people and it's kind of cool to see it through students' eyes. So it's a fun time of the year.
Absolutely. I think I've gotten
Yeah.
4 to 5 applicants who have seen the Instagram and then been local and reached out and shadowed me and become interested in podiatry. So I'm doing my ever so small part to get the word out about podiatry and what we do. And I think some of that salary data that is coming out will help squash some of those untrue and unfounded rumors about underpaid jobs out there
Yeah.
because those trolls are hogging up all the bandwidth on their websites, and with the truth comes power, and we can get that word out there.
Yeah. I think like, we talked about potentially some of the pros and cons of it, but I think on the whole, it's a positive. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Anybody listening, we appreciate your support for the Paw Patrol podcast. If you get a chance, leave this video a like, give us a review, hopefully 5 stars if you enjoy it, subscribe wherever possible. we do have my very first sponsor coming up on season 3. I have turned down incalculable. I don't even know how to spell that. If I don't know how to spell it, I shouldn't say it. Innumerable. I don't know how to spell that either. A lot of potential advertisement people because I did not want, like I said, a conflict of interest. I did not want anything to skew my potential opinion. But this advertiser is near and dear to my heart. He's former guest Jim McDaniel, who does podiatry marketing. So a fellow podiatrist, we are going to let him advertise on the platform. So look forward to podiatry marketing from Jim McDaniel coming soon as our first advertised sponsor on the podcast. This will do it for season 2. It's a wrap. Can't believe we're here finishing up season 2 finale. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Dr. Ashley Dikis.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to be my final guest of season 2. Watch out for season 3 of Paw Patrol Podcast coming soon to a podcast platform and YouTube near you soon. Stay tuned for future episodes. Until then, thank you for joining us on this episode of Paw Patrol with your host, Dr. Jeff Dikis. We'll see you guys next time.
Disclaimer. Opinions expressed are those of the content creators and do not represent any employer or entity. The information shared is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice or used in any legal capacity, including establishing standards of care. All efforts have been made to comply with HIPAA regulations. No guarantees are made regarding the accuracy of statements or opinions provided. Interaction with the podcast does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please enjoy this podcast responsibly.